Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I'm Cruellica Kain.
As we were talking about last time, we're going to be fanboy and fangirl over this episode because Kamen Rider is getting an expansion into America and its 50th anniversary had a bunch of new projects announced. But also on the other side,
there's rumors
that Toei and Hasbro will not be renewing their license together after 2022.
So let's talk about the positive. So we'll go on a good news, bad news type of pivot. So with the good news, I am super excited about Kamen Rider coming to America. I know Kaiju did a news report on it, but I feel like we need to give our own spin.
So, 01 will be getting a physical Blu-ray release as well as streaming on Tubi, Tokusatsu's website, and Tokusatsu on Pluto TV. Mm-hmm. Also, Ryuki has just a streaming license at the moment. And then the 50th anniversary, the only one we know that so far coming westward is going to be the new Kamen Rider Black on Amazon Prime. That's all we know. They also announced a Shin Kamen Rider movie directed by Hideaki Anno, which I actually will be interested to see Anno's take on Kamen Rider.
Oh yeah, same here.
Because Shin Godzilla, even though it felt like you're watching Eva at some points, was still an awesome, awesome Godzilla movie.
So I am personally excited because when it was approximately about 20 years ago when I started watching Kamen Rider because of Kaiju no Kami, because that's when we started a relationship. And the first series that I was introduced to, technically he was introduced to it as well, was Ryuki. And watching a Highlander type series in this unknown world, because while I watch tons of anime and I've seen Power Rangers, the whole concept of this type of series, which was much more mature, was so amazing to me.
And Ryuki's by far one of the darkest. I'd say only Blade and the first season of Black will actually be darker stories than Ryuki.
Very true. I will agree with that. Both of those series are much darker, but Ryuki has a very good transferable element. Dragon Knight was the American adaptation of it, and while it wasn't the greatest, it was still at least...
And for a Canadian production, it worked.
It did. It wasn't a complete insult as it could have been.
Yeah, 4Kids, even though they brought it over to the US, it was actually a Canadian company in Toronto that brought it over and tried their hands at adaptation after Saban's original attempt with Black RX failed.
But the reason why we're so excited, well, at least I can say I am excited, and I imagine it's the same for you, is that as a fan of Kamen Rider, it feels like in America that has been inherently ignored. Super Sentai, not as much because Power Rangers has come, but Kamen Rider more so.
Yeah, and we talked about this, God, I think it was like our 8th or 9th episode. We'd have to look back and see which one it was, but there was a Twitter thread that went around where one of the producers of Kamen Rider did not think there was any market in America, and it blew up.
And it was hilarious how much it blew up because everyone collectively said, "What are you saying there's no market in the United States? We are here to prove that there is."
And Gio, the actor for that series, the main lead, was asking some fans in some broken English how they were watching the show in America.
And that was a question that quite a few people had. Is like, okay, if there's such a market for it in the United States, how are you technically watching it? And while I think everybody collectively gasped like, crap, do we want to tell them that we've been illegally downloading the series for at least, including for myself altogether, 20-something years? But that's the only way Americans have had the opportunity to watch it. And the same thing goes for original Super Sentai as well. You have no other choice but to download.
And with a lot more niche titles, too. And I think they have finally got the picture. But at the same time, the only way you're going to show the support is by these physical releases. And then Discotech, during one of their Twitch streams just a few weeks back, announced they have some more tokusatsu coming down the line. They'll announce the titles in an upcoming stream here in May, early June, when the next Twitch stream is. They haven't said when it's going to be yet. That's just their time frame. But they'll say what they finally have acquired, because all the legal paperwork should be signed on the dotted line by then. They can officially say what it is.
Absolutely. And the reason why I think we are so excited and so many are so excited is the fact that our voices are finally being heard. That it's not just having Bluefin be our representative.
Yeah. And I think Mill Creek, with the success they've had with Ultraman, has also showed these companies.
Oh, especially with Toei. And
because Tsuburaya has done everything right.
Tsuburaya has done everything right, and Tsuburaya has always been an advocate. I think even in the early days with Godzilla, of being an advocate of saying there's so much more interest than just our little area in the world.
Yeah.
And I think once they finished all of their issues with Chayo, that they were able to legally release their own properties in the United States and do so correctly, it really proved that there is a market, there is an interest. And I think Shout Factory also, with pushing to be able to release some of the Sentai series, as well as pushing Toei to say, hey, let us try streaming some of this series on our Tubi channel.
Yeah.
Just give us a chance to prove it. And I think, without knowing the numbers, and unfortunately it's none of our business to know the official numbers unless they release it, there must have been enough success with people watching it for them to say, we can legitimately prove there is a market for this.
And another sign there's a legitimate market. Funimation and Sony are co-producing the double sequel anime.
Yes. Which I think is fantastic. Obviously, it's Toei property. Toei manages the initial creation of it. But obviously, Sony and Funimation said, we're jumping in. But then again, I think they've seen the success with the Garo animes.
Yeah.
Which is, once again, based off a live-action tokusatsu property.
And unfortunately, we don't know what happened with Made in Japan now that Sentai no longer is having that division run. And the license has lapsed for Garo, so
hopefully, if nothing else, we can get the completion of that universe for everything that happened for Koga. But I know a lot of people have had some arguments about why is 01 the first series that's coming out physically. One,
it's fresh in the zeitgeist.
It's fresh in the zeitgeist, and it plays upon two different factors when you think about it from a Kamen Rider fan standpoint and knowing the franchise as well as many of us do. It harkens to modern and old Kamen Rider tropes all in the same series.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not talking about the early of the Heisei era. It harkens back to a lot of the Showa tropes in the show. Yeah, the middle of the series isn't the greatest, but the first 15 episodes and the final 8 really sell the show as a really good one to actually bring over. And
I think it has a lot of elements, and I think X-Aid would be another great show to bring to the United States, just like Fourze, because it also manages between the younger and older audiences very well.
Yeah, X-Aid, even though its first 2 episodes weren't very strong, that's one that a lot of people were clamoring, and if you actually looked at it online, they were saying X-Aid, not 01, should have been the first physical release.
I'm happy with 01 being the first one because I agree. It's the most recent in everybody's zeitgeist. It's what people know, and in my personal purview, with the fact that Toei's tokusatsu divisions, obviously, Sentai and Kamen Rider have gone to B tier rather than A tier.
Well,
for
no,
Ultraman.
Kamen Rider is A tier with Ultraman.
Oh,
Sentai
yes,
went to B tier.
Yes, you're right. But I think with the fact that it comes to the United States, it could be one of those things, well, it may not be able to be simulcast, but I think Ultraman proved with Zet that it can be.
Yeah.
As long as you take the time to remember your fan base.
Yeah. And Bluefin has shown that the Kamen Rider belts have been a success selling here in the U.S. to the collector's markets. They're selling out of the belts every time they get a release.
I'm looking straight ahead at all of the Kamen Rider merch and Sentai merch essentially, but mostly Kamen Rider merch I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7 belts, and only one of them was a domestic purchase. All the rest were imports.
Absolutely. And this is not to say that I won't continue buying it, because I saw the double belts.
Getting another reissue.
And I intend to get that one too. So I think it's important that if you want to have a property come to the United States, blow up a Japanese actor or Japanese producer's Twitter feed when he says it's not popular, because apparently that helps. And 2, just keep on proving that it works when it comes out to America. Even if you hated 01, and I know Kaiju said this, but I'm going to copy it because I think it's true. Even if you hated 01, buy it. Give it away to somebody else who's never seen Kamen Rider before, just to make sure we support.
Yeah. And in a way, this is a great introduction series for somebody who's
Yes.
never seen a Kamen Rider show. Because it's, with it being the first series of the Reiwa, like with Kuga, they wanted to go with a fresh start, and they really did. Even though Saber has not really been that great.
We'll ignore Saber. We'll ignore that one. That doesn't exist because we're going to get Kamen Rider in the United States. And that, I think, is going to be the important thing. Yes, it probably is going to aggravate a lot of people who prefer just to download their series and not buy them legally. And I understand the frustration with that. You've been trained for decades that the only way you're going to get your series is by downloading. But if you want good quality series to come to the United States, and you just want good quality series going forward, you have to support it legally.
Yeah, and look what Tsuburaya has done with their YouTube channel. It's been a success, and it looks like Toei's, even though they're only uploading a select episodes right now at the time, we'll have to see what they do with the series after Saber, if they're going to do a YouTube like what Tsuburaya has been doing. Because they already announced that Ultraman Trigger will simulcast just like Zet did.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's go to the other
one
topic.
thing I wanted to mention, just before we go to the other topic, that I thought was the last cool thing. If you get to look online, look for the 01 video for Kamen Rider. I think Kaiju has posted on his Twitter, but if not, we can find a way to make sure to do so. It's actually by 2 of the actors from 01 thanking the American audiences for loving Kamen Rider, which I thought was a huge compliment.
Oh, yeah.
Because they even said in the video, we did not know how many people were watching what we did in the United States or any other country. And we cherish the fact that our work is being appreciated all across the world. So I think if nothing else, that's a huge compliment to all of us who have persevered and kept on going and saying, we're going to support this franchise.
So now for our other topic.
For the bad news. Which it's rumored, so there's nothing official.
But the shareholders meeting that Hasbro had has kind of hinted that the current shareholders of Hasbro do not want to continue negotiating with Toei after Dragon Fury ends. I mean, Dino Fury.
Dino Fury, yes. So and this has been a rumor for the last couple of years, and Kaiju Okami has been very adamant about not listening to rumors because they're as true as anything until you get the word out of the horse's mouth, so to speak.
But where there's smoke, there's fire with these shareholders meetings.
And the challenge right now with the bad news is that once Hasbro purchased the rights from Saban for Power Rangers,
they were given free reign to do whatever they wanted with the license and the agreement if you actually look at the legal text.
And what that means is that they're looking at what is going to sell for them. And right now, the one thing that has been very popular for Hasbro, which I think has been the same way for Transformers and so many other things, is the fact that the toy sales and the comic book sales are doing better than the television series.
And Boom Studios comic adaptations, and then for Power Rangers and also their Transformer comics, the more recent Transformers series, even though they've been more streaming ones, have been pulling from Boom Studios comics.
And while it doesn't mean that Sentai is dead in America, and I think that's where we have to delineate the kind of hope springs eternal aspect of the bad news, is there is a high probability that with the way the rumors have been going, and they have been circling for many resources for years now.
And we've all known that the license, that agreement with Toei ends after 2022.
Yes. So it's not a shocker by any means, but the reason why we wanted to give some credence to the rumors a little bit is because it says that Power Rangers would be ending, or could be ending, in the United States.
Which I don't think is going to be what's happening. Hasbro is going to be more than likely, because they have the rights to the Power Rangers IP, which is a separate thing from the Sentai. They can choose to do whatever they want with this IP. Meaning they can go with an original direction now.
But that does not mean, and I think this is where you have to look at the positive even with the negative. It does not mean that Super Sentai is going away in America.
Because Toei can still negotiate with the good relationship they have with Shout and start bringing those titles out again.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it is disappointing that a long-running franchise, even if I haven't been a fan of Power Rangers its entirety, it has created a lot of great series, a lot of iconic elements for series throughout the decades. And I think it's important that we acknowledge what has been done with that. And with Hasbro, one of the things that they did, and I think this is what really sparked a lot of the concerns and rumors, is they skipped a few series.
Which they went back and went with a series where, yes, they had to redo the suits, but they went on a budget when they adapted Go Buster.
And they did, and yes, they did skip about 2 to 3 series, but the reasoning behind it actually technically makes sense.
Toy sales.
Well, I would say both toy sales and the cost of production. Let's look at Toku. That particular series is focused on trains.
Not a big seller.
Not in the United States. I'm not saying there aren't train enthusiasts in the U.S., because there are, but not to the degree that they are in Japan. Trains in Japan are a cultural narrative.
Yeah. And then if Saban had still had the license, Q Ranger more than likely would have been the most recent adaptation.
And I think the reason why Q Ranger wasn't chosen, in my personal opinion, is not simply just choice sales, but also you're casting at least 15 Rangers.
Yeah.
And that's a huge cost.
And Saban, when they adapted Dino Charge, had to have 12 Rangers for that show.
And, well, that is still a huge cost in its own self. You have to think about one thing that they do pretty commonly in the United States. They don't always use all of the villains that they do in Japan. So they have to cast new actors, new actresses for either human versions of villains or reuse the suits for the Japanese versions.
Or a lot of the times to save money, they use original villains.
And if you do the number of Rangers you have for the series, on top of any villains, that for Q Ranger itself would be
Hasbro
costly.
ended up looking at the cost and went, we have to skip this.
Well, and Lupin versus Pato Ranger,
Cops and Robbers would have worked.
I agree. I am actually a little disappointed that they didn't bring out that series, because I do think that could have lent itself for an adaptation very easily.
In Zoologer, I was surprised they skipped, considering that would have been an easy budget show with the mech design.
And with the fact that Minecraft is so popular in the United States, it probably would have upped their sales a little bit more. But they have to look at logistics.
Yeah.
And while we may or may not agree, we're also Sentai fans.
Yeah. And Hasbro's looking like they're going to go the reboot route, which is probably another cost-saving measure.
And truthfully, why not? Nostalgia is in. And just because they don't use the Japanese costumes anymore
and go with their own original costumes doesn't mean the franchise is dead. They're probably going to be doing like they're doing with Transformers nowadays and pulling from the Boom Studio stuff.
And just like that, also, as we said, even though it's a little disappointing that for the last few years we have not had any more Super Sentai releases of full series, that doesn't mean that that's never going to happen again either. There is always those possibilities that once any contractual disputes are over or any addendums have been made, that new things can open up for Shout, which does have a very strong relationship with Toei, or they could do a partnering relationship with another anime studio or anything like that to be able to release it, because yes, the contracts are very expensive for these properties.
Yeah, and we just don't know what's going to happen after 2022, but it's all signs are pointing to Hasbro wanting to save money and do everything domestically.
Which they've been notorious for that over the generations. The only thing they'll do internationally is produce their toys.
Yeah.
But this is not to say that Hasbro is the bad guy. It's not even to say that Toei's the bad guy. It could inevitably also be, and this is the one thing I think people are forgetting, is Toei may be reflecting on what they want to do. They could be the ones pulling the plug, not Hasbro.
And we will never know. The only people are going to know are shareholders on both sides.
Yes. So unless you buy stock with Hasbro and are ever attending any of those shareholders meetings, nobody's going to know officially. And that means I actually should buy some stock in Hasbro. That's an idea.
Yeah, and the only reason that I knew about this is I know somebody who owns some stock in Hasbro and was on the shareholder meeting that.
Well, exactly, yeah. And so, with that said, it is bad news.
And good news at the same time.
Exactly. Bad news if it does delay more Super Sentai series from coming out into the United States. But then again, as fans, we waited how long to even get the 10, 11 series that we already got?
And we waited, for you, 20 years, me, 16 years for Kamen Rider to actually be officially out here.
Exactly. So, it's not the end of the world. We just have to be patient. And now that we've won one small battle, we can keep on riding the wave until we get to everything that we want. I know Kaiju wants Black and Blade, and I want a physical release of Ryuki, as well as I would like to have a physical release of Kabuto, Double, and O's.
Yeah, for me, Forze, O's, Blade. I'd like to see Agito and Kuga both get physical releases.
So all we have to do is just stay positive, because it's an incredible win for the American fandom. And that is the best thing that we could ever achieve.
And we're seeing more Toku come over, and we'll have to see what Discotech has in store for us later this year when they can officially announce their new acquisitions.
Absolutely. If nothing else, thank Mill Creek, thank Shout, and thank Kraken. Because if not for those three organizations, we would not have any of the Tokusatsu series that we currently do right now.
And thank Discotech for taking that risk on Just Beyond.
Oh yes, that is very true. Discotech did do that. So that proves that they're even seeing that there's so much out there. And maybe it will also help to change the stigma for those anime fans that don't watch anything live action.
Yeah.
that they'll actually see that there is a positive connection. That's why I'm so excited about Double getting an anime adaptation, because it will probably help spark interest in the live action.
Yeah, they helped Garo, so we can hope.
Absolutely. So on that note, we will not be gone so long next time. Life just gets in the way occasionally, but we promise we'll be back very soon. We'll do some character analyses. We'll talk about other things. And like always, if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see, please let us know.
Yeah. Leave a like and comment. Subscribe, please. Please, 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 please subscribe. Not just for our content, but for Kaiju's content too.
Yes, so we always try to bring out new things. And as I jokingly said in the last Zenkaiger video, if you ever want to see a video of just couples arguing, please let us know.
Yeah. One of those like, do I really want to watch this show after watching you guys argument on this? Especially
no, please do. It's actually a good show.
Well, I saw the second Ranger, because I don't consider the mech suits Rangers, being an homage to Gokaiger, so that's actually making me kind of want to go in and see what they're going to do.
Definitely. Give it a watch. But otherwise, my friends, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye!